What's more difficult is because of the energy requirements to
Mm.
charge these aircraft is does the land have access to energy? So in essence, we're really building an EV network,
Yeah.
EV charging network, and we're running into the same problems that anybody who's building an EV network in a rural community will, which
Mm.
is that there's not enough energy on the grid.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to build in additional systems, whether it's alternative energy to build the energy that where we need it, or battery systems to store the energy so we can release it when we need it.
Welcome back to Commercial Real Estate Unfiltered. And today I'm super excited about a subject that I know nothing about, but we have an expert on to talk about vertiports. I had never even heard of this before, but now we have Lisa Wright with us. She's the founder of Landings, a company building a North American wide network of vertiports. See, I can't even say the word right. Landing and charging infrastructure for electric aircraft. With a background in architecture and energy management, Lisa focuses on the land side of advanced mobility, air mobility, securing strategically located sites that can support electric aviation at scale. Landing's report securing more than 2,000 strategic locations across the U.S. has been featured in Bloomberg and is currently raising capital to expand its platform, particularly in rural and underserved markets. Lisa, welcome to the show. I know nothing. So you're here to teach us. So let's maybe start off about what is a vertiport and how did you get into this business?
Great, excellent. Well, I love to be that person who gets to answer that question. So, vertiport does not exactly roll off the tongue.
No.
Um, Yeah, so my background is over 20 years in real estate on the, say, developer architect side. So I'm a licensed architect, built countless thousands of locations globally for
Okay.
different retailers, commercial architecture, commercial real estate. While I was doing that, we had a couple of projects come our way that were for FBOs or private jets. So I had done a little bit of in aviation, but really my core skill set is scaling architecture.
Yeah.
Right. So I love building 500 of something or 2000 of something. So my background is a builder, and that's why I love that it's an aviation sector, but
Mhm.
I'm really about the land and
Yeah.
less the name. My background is architecture and real estate. Both my father and my brother were pilots, always looking around the area. And
Yeah.
eight years ago, a friend of mine, somebody had mentioned a private jet, and I said, I worked on this FBO, but I will never be able to fly in a private jet. Architects don't roll that way.
Right.
And right. And he said, no, there's these new electric aircraft coming out and they're so inexpensive to operate that everybody's going to have an opportunity to fly in them. And he said to me, again, 8 years ago, it will be like taking an Uber. So that was the seed that got planted
Wow.
was that there's this new method of flight, and I happen to like flight, that's going to proliferate. And now we've watched EVs proliferate like crazy. And what's the biggest bottleneck? It's charging.
Yep. Yep.
So it's
Absolutely.
not about the aircraft, it's not about being in the air. It's very much about how do you keep them maintained and operating. And when I realized that part, which was a few years ago, I thought, well, nobody's better suited to build out a network of, I don't know how many at the time, locations. I also have done a lot of energy management and digital twins, so I have energy background as well. So I just was like, put it together, and nobody else seemed to be looking
Yeah.
uh, at building this network yet.
That's pretty incredible. So where are you seeing these projects happening primarily? It sounded like there you've got about 2,000 or so of those, if I read it correctly. So where are you seeing those being placed and what kind of properties are you looking for? What kind of land?
Yeah. So what I'm looking for and what's in the market right now are a little bit different, which I actually appreciate. Most of the market are building or planning to build vertiports in urban centers.
Yeah.
Right now, China already has. And if you think vertiport is a hard word, eVTOL is even harder, which are electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft. They already
Okay.
have autonomously flying air taxis in China, taking people
Really?
every day. Yes. No pilot. The pilot's remote.
What? How have we not heard about this?
I know it's crazy, right? So they're already flying in
Wow.
China. They've pushed obviously very hard on the energy and electrification portion. The BYD just surpassed Tesla. They've got a leg up on us there. But the American manufacturers of these aircraft and a lot of American drone manufacturers are coming out as well, are getting their certifications. There are plenty of drones in the air right now. They're
Mhm.
still limited to somewhat small payloads. The eVTOLs are being tested and probably will get their certification in the next year in the US to
Oh,
fly.
wow.
So it is coming, it is happening, and why we haven't heard about it? Maybe because it's not commercially available, at least the passengers yet,
Yeah.
but it's coming soon.
Wow. So what size properties do these vertiports require? And how does that maybe compare to a traditional airport?
Yeah. And I realized I got distracted there. I started by saying they're urban, and landings is actually focusing on the other 80%, which is rural.
Yeah.
And there's a very distinct reason for that. The urban use case is very much about repetitive, high use frequency use cases like going to the airport from New York City.
Yeah.
We already have that. It's a helicopter. It's called Blade.
Yeah.
That's great. It's great. It's still going to be limited to a certain amount of people. Now, if we talk about bringing people or goods in and out of and moving through rural communities. We have agriculture use cases, we have emergency services use cases,
Mhm.
firefighting, last mile delivery. There becomes this whole other amount of use cases. And it's actually very beneficial to do this in the rural communities because the kind of land we can put it on.
Mm.
We put it on almost any kind of land that you could put a helipad on.
Yep.
So essentially, commercial real estate, if it's big enough, is
Yep.
viable. You obviously have to speak to the community, and the communities have been super excited to
That's
talk to us
awesome.
about adding infrastructure always makes people happy, at least when they've been left out so many times. Cities have lots of infrastructure. So yeah, so we can put them on any commercial. You can put them on residential too, but we're really focused on any industrial property, commercial
Mhm.
property. It could be real, it could be retail, it could be office centers, it could be manufacturing, logistics, agricultural, basically commercial real estate.
Yeah, that's super helpful to me because that was one of the things I was really curious about is because there's so much land out there, but depend
Yeah,
upon where you are or close to. I know tons of land, but zoning and planning is there's a whole side to that, is right. You've worked in that world before with architecture
exactly.
and development, and this is such a unique use that like I was thinking about when before I was getting ready for the call. I'm like, let me go through the zoning code and see like where would this go? And I'm like, there's no, it's not identified in our zoning code.
Exactly.
So,
So the FAA essentially, so it's an odd combination of who rules the air and who rules land, right? So
yeah, yeah.
the FAA defines it as a subset of a helipad. And we
Okay.
already have helipads
Yeah,
because we already know how to build them and we know how to request and ask the communities for them.
yeah,
So essentially, it's a subset of a helipad.
yeah. So as you're looking for commercial properties, what size are you looking at? Is that based on the market area, or what are some of the factors that you're considering as you're looking for a particular size of land?
Yeah, this is probably the thing that got me most excited about these aircraft and this whole sector is that because they take off and land vertically, they do not require a lot of space, less than a helicopter even.
Well,
And the next best thing is that they're very quiet, which is the other reason people don't want helicopters near them.
right.
So because they are quiet and because they don't require a large footprint, our network starts with a minimum of 1.5 to 2 acres.
Mhm.
Is one of our smallest. And then our largest is 12 acres. And you look at even a small regional airport is hundreds to thousands of acres.
Yeah,
So this means we can start to literally dot them around the nation, and it doesn't take a whole lot of space.
that's awesome. I love that. So one of the things you mentioned, and as we were preparing for the meeting, is to look at these Veriports more as a function of as an amenity versus a cost center. Can you share what you mean by that a little bit?
Yeah, there's different, obviously, if it's for medical purposes or emergency services, the ROI is a whole other issue.
Yeah.
But when we're talking to commercial property owners and they have either logistics or some even rural office parks, essentially they're able to increase who can participate in their property by adding a vertiport. And again, it takes a small part of the parking lot. Very
Yep.
often, these places have large parking lots. So the amount of additional traffic it could bring, it's not going to be flights every day, but it's
Right.
going to be able to fill their spaces. It's going to bring opportunities for logistics,
Yeah.
especially in smaller areas. And for agricultural areas, we see a lot of use cases for the logistics side as well.
Yeah. And I just recently got this in the last year, got an electrical car. So I'm like understanding the port and the charging piece of it. It really
Yeah,
is. So now when I'm going to a store, I'm like, oh, do I need to charge? So I'm looking for that amenity.
exactly.
So while I'm getting my groceries, I can be charging and get on to the next place. But so how do you structure those deals? Do you typically go in and purchase the land? Is there some sort of asset sharing or profit sharing with the landowner? How does that typically work?
Yeah, so we're starting off very asset light. So we are working with the landowners. It's a partnership essentially,
Mhm.
where we will do the feasibility study, do all of the design and work, pay for the build, finance the equipment, basically get everything through zoning and through the local government until it's running. And
Mhm.
we do not pay a lease and we do not buy the land either. The owner owns the land. Once we're making money, then there's a revenue share with the landowner.
I love that. I love that. So it makes it very pretty seamless once you find the right partner to be able to pull something like this off. And I can't wait until I'm starting to visualize what this could look like. And it's pretty exciting. And so one of the things we talk about, you talked about too, is why ground infrastructure, not aircraft, is the real constraint. And I'm assuming that is because of typical airports are needing so much more space. Are there any other items that are considered where the ground infrastructure is, what are those constraints?
Yeah, no. So it's interesting because a lot of the constraint is actually there's plenty of land.
Yeah,
As it turns
right.
out, when
Yeah,
we're in the areas we're looking in, there's plenty of land. So if somebody's, I don't think I want a vertiport on my property, there's somebody a mile away
yeah,
who
yeah,
probably will.
probably will.
It turns out the land is pretty easy to come by. What's more difficult is because of the energy requirements to
Mm.
charge these aircraft is does the land have access to energy? So in essence, we're really building an EV network,
Yeah.
EV charging network, and we're running into the same problems that anybody who's building an EV network in a rural community will, which is that there's not enough energy on the grid.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to build in additional systems, whether it's alternative energy to build the energy that where we need it, or battery systems to store the energy so we can release it when we need it. And essentially, we're working with the communities because they're all like, we want a microgrid anyhow.
Mm.
They actually would love to have a battery system in their community.
Yeah.
And we're saying we'll put it on our property,
Yeah.
essentially. So yeah, that's the biggest problem is actually energy right now.
Energy. That makes sense. And when you do these, are these strictly vertiports, or is there also an element, because talking about some of these rural communities, they want that charging station. Are there options for there to be vehicle charging stations as well?
Yeah, exactly. To the point, right? We're trying to put EV charging where a lot of people have stopped trying to put EV charging,
Yeah.
essentially, or they thought they were going to get funded for it by the government, didn't happen. So there's the giving back to the community, and this is a big part of what we do. We don't want to go anywhere where somebody we're not wanted. We really want to work with the community, and we see this all as a value to the community in general.
Yeah.
And we're bringing jobs, we're new careers, new companies who will be around. We're working with the community to make our charging stations, where possible, multimodal,
Yeah.
meaning that even municipal fleets are turning electric as well, and they need a
Mhm.
place to charge. There's school
Yeah.
buses, there's ambulances, there's utility vehicles that are becoming electric. So
Yeah.
and a lot of people who live in these areas say, I'd love to have an EV, but I think it's going to be
Right.
hard for me to charge.
Yep.
So we're working with a couple of manufacturers of charging equipment. And the one that we are really excited about right now, we're still working on, but they will be able to charge both municipal fleets, consumer vehicles, and our aircraft.
Very cool. I love that. And that's what in my business, we're very much about building community. And I love that this is being looked at through that lens. And on a logistical standpoint, like about how far would these airports be apart from each other? How far can these planes travel?
Yeah. So right now, the eVTOLs, which are the ones that get a lot of press, are flying One of them can fly very far, but it doesn't take off and land vertically, so it's a trick.
Interesting. Okay.
And that one has a range of a couple hundred miles. Most of
Hmm.
them are projecting a range of 150 miles when they're released. Right now, I think it's closer to 70, but you also
Okay.
have to consider you have to charge on either end of that 150, right? How we're designing our network is that you will not be more than 30 minutes from from a charging station when you're in the air. So we're putting ours fairly close together. That's how we end up with our 2000.
Yep.
And so right now we have a network in upstate New York that we're working on in the Mohawk Valley. It is 6 counties, and in those 6 counties, we're proposing 12 vertiports. Each of those vertiports is probably from within 30 to 40 miles
Okay.
of 3 or 4 other vertiports of the network.
Yeah. That's awesome. When do you see that kind of start rolling out? Because this is definitely vision stage and planning, which is great for us to talk about it now for people to see what the future is bringing.
Yeah.
But how long do you think it is before? Obviously, there's some approvals that need to happen and things like that. But in your opinion, when do you think that you start seeing this actively happening?
So I've been at this for a year and a half, like strictly landings. And when I started, I had someone say to me, Lisa, this is amazing, but you are possible adjacent. It sounds like
Ah,
something we can
yeah.
imagine, but how close are you?
Yeah.
I never get the question anymore. I get the question, but it's not, will it ever happen? It's when it will happen.
When?
And within the last 2 months, the DOT, federal and many of the states, are coming out with guidelines, with groups that are trying to figure out how they're going to integrate advanced air mobility into their infrastructure, into their
Yeah.
state and national infrastructure. So it's gotten a lot more important on both the national and the state scale. Likewise, say competitors of mine, people who build FOBs for historical airports, small regional airports, they've started to build their portfolio and start talking about not just having that one flagship landing location,
Mm.
but a network of them.
Yeah.
So I think that this sort of shift has been from these very high profile, expensive, fancy infrastructure and flights
Mm.
to really bringing as many landing options as possible.
Yeah.
And that's just been in the last 6 months that it's really turned around. So I know on our network, we're hoping to break ground on a couple at least in the Mohawk Valley this year.
Wow.
It's ambitious, but energy takes a while, approvals take a while.
Yeah.
But indeed, and that can't be, I don't even think that's soon enough for us to be able to land some of the aircraft that will be flying in New York next year.
Yeah. Wow. That's exciting. That's really exciting. What I know you're looking to expand and find more options and expand the network, but how are some ways that our listeners could get involved, whether it be an investor or someone who's a commercial real estate broker? How does this affect their life and how do they get involved
Perfect.
in this and learning more about it?
Yeah. No, I love that question. At our website, which is landings.co, we have a special landowners section and it gives an overview of sort of the things we've spoken about now, like what is a vertiport? Why would I want one? How does it help me as a landowner? And we break it down by the different types of land. So if medical or if you have industrial property
Yeah.
or agricultural. So we break it down there, but also we have an area you could submit a site to
Oh,
us.
very
And
cool.
we haven't released it yet, but we have an app, the Landings app, which will show your location. We score it based on the size, the location, if there's any obstacles in the way, what the access to energy is it level enough, is the ground solid enough. So we score it and we'll send you a score and then let you know where we are in your region
Yep.
and basically put you on the map and say, okay, oh, we've got 6 more areas of interest in your
Yeah.
region here. Let's build a network. So
Yeah.
we don't ever just want to build one vertiport. We want to build multiple networks and then join the networks.
Yeah.
So that's what we're looking for is a certain amount of interest or density in a certain area.
Yeah. I
But
love it.
yeah, the landowner section of our website will have that. And if somebody submits an address, then we are sending out right now beta access to our app.
Very cool. I think I'm just for fun because I want to learn more about this. I've got some land listings that have been sitting there for Lord knows
Perfect.
how long. And one of them, I think, has been on the market for 7 years.
Yeah.
And if we can find a solution, and that's been one of the things I've struggled with in our market, is that there is a lack of industrial land. There is a lack of some of the smaller suburbs are a lot stricter when it comes to their zoning and planning. And it's like
Yeah.
you get stuck. I think there's a lot of landowners that get stuck with something that they're like, they inherited it or whatever, and it's just a random piece.
Right.
And people are like, what do I do with it? So like for me, this is just like a no-brainer light goes on of this could be a solution for people who are holding land.
Exactly.
I
Absolutely.
love
You know,
that.
and we love to talk to brokers. We love to talk to people who have portfolios of properties. We will analyze we can batch upload the addresses and analyze the whole portfolio for you guys. So we're excited. So
That's
send
amazing.
it in.
Absolutely, I will. And for any commercial brokers that are listening, like this is cutting edge, brand new. And I think we have to be thinking about the future. I think I've been talking to a lot of younger brokers in the market. I've been in it now for 12, 13 years, but people that are starting to think differently. The old guard is changing, right? People are starting to retire. So we can't keep doing things the way that we've been doing it. And to have something like this come online is just, okay, this is exciting.
Thank you. I think it
Yeah.
is too. And what's interesting is that for the last year, everybody's been hearing AI. You ask
Mhm.
investors. Investors have been investing heavily in AI. And then on the real estate side, that meant people were investing heavily in data
Yeah.
centers. Data
Yep.
centers were realizing that's a long-term commitment. The
It
communities
is.
aren't always pleased with it. And I'm here to say, like, a vertiport is
Yeah.
small. It's only 1 or 2 megawatts of energy required to fuel us,
Yeah.
and it doesn't require as much space. And honestly, it's going to happen sooner.
Yeah.
So we're a great alternative
Yeah.
for data centers.
Yeah. So what should commercial property owners be doing right now if they want exposure in this new market of air mobility?
Yeah, number one is put if we have them on the map and they say we can share the information of their property with the people that we speak to while we're trying to build these networks. That's the best thing is to try to become part of the network because then we're speaking to people every day,
Yeah.
whether it's entertainment like casinos or retailers or even the regional airports. They want to have a part of this as well.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of people we're talking to, and if we just find one more location within your region, we could really build up this network. We could
Yeah.
solidify it. So I think just being on the map
Yeah.
essentially is
Makes
is
sense.
one. And we can also start talking to people about sharing of the on the network essentially.
Yeah.
Whether or not you want to be friends with the person who's on the same micro network as you, I don't know, but it's one way to start building it. And also, I really do love the community aspect of it. So,
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it really does become more of a game changer because I know people in my market is primarily Colorado Springs, but you've got the west side people that will not cross over to the east side. You've created these pockets. So I can see how this solution would really make it so much easier for people to go to places they wouldn't normally go
yep.
and be able to access that. What does it look like? And maybe I'm thinking too far out, but what kind of cost is involved for, say, a consumer to participate in that?
Yeah, so it depends on how they're participating. The services that will be carried on the vertiport can be heavy drones, which will be logistics. And so
Yep.
those prices are set by the
Yep.
logistics companies,
Yep.
but they expect that because the maintenance of these aircraft and the operation of these aircraft is so low, even the heavy drones. So we've been talking to a company who has produce and they need to get their produce to all the universities and schools who they provide fresh produce to. They live in an area they work in an area that does not have great highways. These groups get fresh produce once a week. Right?
Yeah.
Because that's
Yeah.
when the truck goes. So
Right.
we're talking to them and they're expecting this to reduce their cost
Mm.
because in these areas, the cost of fuel and the driver and the vehicle to get to a spot that's maybe only 50 miles away, but over the hill, over the mountain,
Yep.
is actually a lot more expensive than using a heavy drone to carry and they can get it maybe daily, maybe twice a week,
Yeah.
as opposed to that. So on the logistics side, it's expected to be less if you're considering fuel. On the passenger side, which is still up in the air,
Yeah.
I think the initial flights are going to be expensive for consumers,
Yep.
people taking a luxury flight in a way. But when when we speak to groups, say there's a dialysis center that is the only dialysis center within 3 hours, right, radius.
Yeah.
And a lot of people drive, and that's just impossible to
Yeah.
imagine driving 3 hours for a day of dialysis and driving back.
Yeah.
For them, the cost is they pay for the people to be transported that way or the other. Either way, the cost is a lot safer.
Mhm.
It seems like better health outcomes.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the if you're going to say it's going to be cheaper than driving yourself for 3 hours, but for sure the
Right.
ROI and that's a little different.
But time is money, right? People that have jobs they can't leave for drive a day and then do it. I think there's
Yeah.
some really cool community applications to this. And I had actually recently had on a friend of mine who runs a nonprofit called Food to Power, where what they're trying to address is food deserts and these areas where there is not access, right? And the closest thing is a 7-Eleven, right? And then you might be able to get a banana or an apple there, but like I can see how this application could really have a lot of positive effect in within communities that it's in.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that because I know I was looking at in these food deserts, the one thing that used to be there was like a dollar store or Dollar
Mhm.
General, right? A lot of those are
They're
closing too.
closing.
And I look at those sites, I'm like, they have enough power for us to use that site, reuse that site
Yeah.
essentially. Yeah, and then what could land there could be your produce, or it could be become the farmer's market
Right.
essentially, whatever day of the week
Yep.
that is. We did speak to a group out of Maine, and I know lobster seems a little fancy, but in Maine it's not. They have so much. And it was the same situation where they were like, we would really love to deliver our fresh fish and lobster to our communities in Maine, but they only get it once a week
Right.
because that's as much as we can drive the van around. And it was the same response, which is we can fly it over. We can
Yeah.
fly it over from your dock essentially to
Right.
your community.
I love it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Lisa, this has been like super fascinating. I'm so thankful for the work that you're doing because it's not just a great idea. It's something that is going to be making an impact. And is there anything else you want to share with our listeners before we sign off?
No, I just, if anybody hears about any land or any availability, if anybody knows of those old Dollar Generals or
Yeah,
somebody who owns one of those, let me know. And like I said, we'll keep you updated on what's going on with the industry, but it's going to happen in the next year
that's
and it'll
amazing.
be very exciting. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll make sure that our listeners know where to find you. We'll have all the links in the show notes when it comes out. And Lisa, thank you again for such a fantastic conversation.
Thank you.
We'll see you all next time. If today's episode gave you valuable commercial real estate insights, subscribe, rate, and share it. Connect with me and the David Commercial Real Estate team through the show notes. Remember, real estate is more than buildings, it's about building community. See you next time.